That song that we just sang, when we think about feeling at home in this world, Jesus gave us some very clear pictures as to why we need not feel at home here. But instead, he wanted to give us another goal to shoot for, which was heaven. Over in Matthew chapter 7, Jesus likened, he gave us two examples about a wise man and then one that wasn't so wise. He called him a foolish man. And the reason he gave us that example is because our mindset sometimes leads us down one path, but then we have to stop and think, how wise is that path we're getting ready to take? Our life is full of choices and decisions that we make. And what Jesus does here is he invites us, he invites those that he is speaking to make one very clear-cut, sound decision. And then he gives us an example of why. In Matthew chapter 7 and verse 24, he says, "Therefore, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who built his house on the rock." So what Jesus wants us to do, not only those that are listening to him, but what he wants us to do is he wants us to build our house on the rock. Well, the rock in this situation is the things that he is teaching. The teaching is holy, it's pure, it's perfect, and he wants us, with our Christian faith, to build on that foundation, which is on him. He is that rock. He says that the wise man that builds his house on this rock, he says the rains will come down, the floods will come, the winds will blow and beat on that house, and it will not fall because it was founded on the rock. Jesus is the rock. He is that foundation. A wise man builds his foundation on that rock. That's what Jesus is saying here. And then he says, everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them, he will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. Well, the sand in this case is everything but Christ. So if we try to build our spiritual foundation on anything but Christ, it's destined to fail. And this is what he says. The rains descended, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on the house, and it fell. And great was its fall. So we might think we've got it all figured out. We were talking in our Bible class earlier tonight about treasures on this earth, and sometimes we get in this mindset of accumulating more and more and more. But then it becomes like an empty hole that can never be filled. But Jesus can fill the void. He's the one that can fill that treasure galley. We can just fill it with him. And it's based on that foundation and the promise of heaven that we walk through this life. And then this life doesn't become such a burden. That's why Jesus said, "My yoke is easy, my burden is light," compared to the things that you'll face while you're here. If you go through life without me, then it's going to fail. You're like the foolish man who's building on the sand. And that's the invitation that Jesus gives. He wants us to make that one very important decision while we're here, because we don't know how long we have. So he wants us to take advantage of the time that we've been given. So if you're here tonight, build your house on Christ. Build your spiritual foundation on Christ. Make him your foundation